Greetings hunters and welcome back to another episode of Monster Field Guide, the show where I catalog the monsters from Monster Hunter World. Today I'm excited because I'm finally covering a world original monster again, the Bazelgeuse. This monstrous pine cone is one of the largest flying wyverns that actually flies. Looking at you, Diablos! Getting this much mass off the ground is incredibly impressive, making Bazelgeuse one of the physically strongest wyverns in the whole franchise. But the only thing stronger than that is my desire to get to the name. Bazelgeuse is named after Betelgeuse, a red supergiant and the 10th brightest star in the sky, seen here in the Orion constellation. Betelgeuse is the French translation of the Arabic Yat al-Jaza, likely meaning the giant. This name and origin tie beautifully back to Bazelgeuse, who is basically a red giant. Now, how does Betelgeuse burn so bright? Well, let's get to that next. Bazelgeuse's underside and tail have these special scales that come off at an angle. These scales house glands that create the monster's signature blast scales. Now, while they're called scales, they're not. These glands secrete a combination of chemicals that harden over time into these teardrop-shaped deposits. This chemical concoction is highly volatile, so disturbing it in any way could cause it to explode. Luckily for Bazelgeuse, its brass-colored skin has become so resilient to the impacts and fires of explosions that it's become immune to its own blast scales. Unfortunately for everything else, these blast scales are extremely dangerous, and Bazelgeuse has learned how to use them in combat. But just how does Bazelgeuse fight? Oh no. Ah! Bazelgeuse's resistance to impact means that it can really throw itself around. It'll tackle and bash into anything with its large armored body, wings, or tail, and adding its blast scales makes it an especially dangerous threat. When its scales aren't falling off naturally, it can shake its body to dislodge them and drop them below, or whip its tail around to send them flying at enemies. This will litter the battlefield with landmines ready to be set off, whether unintentionally by a thrashing monster or intentionally by Bazelgeuse, either by running them over, spewing flames from its mouth to trigger them, or its favorite technique, dive bombing and decimating everything in sight. Paradoxically, Bazelgeuse are both territorial and nomadic, where it prefers low altitude gliding to get from area to area, and establishing its territory, fending off anything that gets in its way. For this expedition, we're going to be looking at a specimen in the Elder's Recess, a volcanic region with several cave systems full of lava, as well as huge clusters of crystals. It's a very harsh environment and one that Bazelgeuse can naturally call home, where it patrols its vast territory with an iron fist. If it knows you're there, it hates you, and will seek you out until you've left its territory, or more likely, blown you to bits. With its behavior of low altitude gliding and dropping bombs on people, Bazelgeuse is inspired by none other than the B-52 fighter plane, a bomber designed for the exact type of bombing runs that Bazelgeuse itself does. Lastly, Bazelgeuse was brought to Monster Hunter to act as a chaotic force on the battlefield, interrupting the player and forcing it to work with a new hazardous obstacle as they continue their journey into the harder parts of the game. But that's all the time we have for this expedition. Join me next time as we cover the putrid elder, Bazelgeuse.